Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Anatomy of the Trade. Today is a special episode. For those of you who are familiar with our community and you've been to our website, you guys know that we have forums there, and Franz is a moderator of those forums. Franz, what are your first thoughts about just, forums and the community and how community uses the forums right now?
We're slowly getting traction.
Mhm.
We're starting to get some very, very interesting posts and some great discussion. And everybody is welcome. We've got, I think, some newer traders that are coming in with their posts and questions. We've got some much more experienced traders that are coming in. We've got a great dialogue going, and it's a great resource. So I appreciate Wyckoff Analytics making it available.
Well, and we want to thank you, Franz, for moderating, for engaging people in the discussion. And I see that, here's one example here of the discussion of the most current, post that we have. And Donnell is asking, what kind of stocks you're looking at for trades to enter right now. He's looking at airline stocks, and he's curious, what everyone else is looking. And I thought that was a really good reply, Franz. We do have a communal Wyckoff watch list that we've launched just recently, as well as forums. So everything is so new and still kind of like in the era, in terms of creating the processes, for those things. But let's go to the communal Wyckoff watch list and let's just go through a bunch of stocks and just see, what we could, how we could answer this. All right, before we do this, some of the students complained that there is a difficulty of getting to the communal Wyckoff watch list, and I concur with this. And guys, we're working on this, so we'll figure out the best way how to deliver this material to you. Having said this, I think the easiest way right now is just to join our mailing list. This comes out every Sunday uh, in the morning, and you could have that newly updated, the link to the newly updated watch list through the newsletter. If you want to find it on stock charts, you would have to go to our charts and tools, go to the public charts, and then try to find it. Sometimes, you can't really find it right away. It's just, something with the stock charts. But once you do, this is how it's going to look. And you could go through all of the stocks. And again, the name communal means to us that all of our students submit their stocks for our further review, and at the end, Bruce and I were going and we're making the final filtering of it. So the list that you have changes in the number of candidates, in the number of stocks, and then this is kind of like the final revised list, from us with Bruce.
Could I make a quick comment
Absolutely.
too? Thanks. Once you found your way to the communal watch list the first time, if you'll notice that the top dark gray bar across from communal watch list, it says voted unfollow follow. Well, first of all, please come in and vote, and you can vote every day, which I do. But secondly, if you follow this, then it's much easier to get to this, because when you go into the public chart lists, there's a little drop down, drop down. Maybe Roman can go back and show us that real quick. But there's a little drop down area, and it'll give you a choice, which is the very first one is charts that I'm following, and you click on that. There you go. All public chart lists, charts I'm following, and watch what happens. There we go.
Yeah, this is a really good shortcut.
And you're in.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
You got to get there the first time, follow, and then from then on, it's easy street.
Great. This is, yeah, this is a great shortcut, Franz. Thank you so much. All right. Well, I have the Wyckoff chart list, on the list of charts that chart list that I have. So this is easy for me. And here it is. And we're starting, with Agilent here. So something, and we're just gonna go through a bunch of them, and I'm just gonna identify to you, and Franz also could, identify the stocks that he's following. We're gonna just go and just tell you what we're looking at right now. So hopefully this would be helpful. All right, so anything in the medical space, in the pharmaceutical space, in the biotechnology space, obviously we have a lot of interest just because of the developments that we have in general with the virus. And then also looking at the stock like this, Agilent Technologies, we're seeing how the stock has been outperforming on the relative basis. And also we see quite a lot of causality that has been built. We see the final retest. We could be thinking that this could be a potential phase C here at the bottom. And look at this relative strength. Momentum is there. So just some confirmations above 80 on the continuation of this move would be nice. But basically, again, looking for stocks that have a cause, that have um, some relative strength outperformance coming out of March low, and looking for some kind of momentum increase on the rally that we have. These are the main characteristics for us, at least for now. And we could look at some of the stocks that had a much more pronounced decline. Those are usually not going to be on this list. They just have a different type of pattern, but let's just see where it's going to take us. All right, Apple. Franz, what do you think about Apple?
Okay. Does it have a cause? I would say it has both a shorter term cause and a longer term cause, although it's been an uptrend for quite a bit of the time during 2019. But I think the cause is there. The relative strength outperformance is obviously there, and it's ticking up a little bit. And the momentum, up to a 20% plus, pull back a little bit. Now it looks like maybe it's getting its second wind.
Yeah, so some kind of structure here between 300 and 250. So we might expect, some uh, touch of the resistance and then another leg down, into the trading range. So we'll have to see how that's going to unfold. Okay, and this is exactly, guys, what I'm doing, each day. Once the list is created, I just kind of like scroll through until I see something very interesting. So there are quite a lot of stocks like this, Abbott Laboratories, that have had already quite an dramatic rise of the March low, and they're already above the structure. So with stocks like this, I would be looking at the formation, and I would be looking at some kind of return and ability to stay above the resistance. And then more importantly, a confirmation, meaning that the price resumes its action to the upside. Because in a lot of cases, what could happen is just there is an attempt to go up, a low or high, and then a break to the downside and coming back into the trading range. And that's what we're trying to avoid on the very, very technical level. Okay, Adobe. Franz, what do you think about Adobe?
Well, Adobe looks sort of similar to the Apple chart, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I mean, probably the same conclusion.
Yeah, and the software areas obviously has been outperforming comparatively when the market was going down, so a much better holding pattern there. And we could see how, again, it's important for us to distinguish the stocks that were in the uptrend, that had some kind of causality, and then they're still reacting off the moving average here, and the relative strength is showing a lot of strength, and then some buying is happening here. So a very interesting, good candidate for us to look at. A lot of the semi stocks attract my attention right now, and specifically, I was looking at them in this area right here, and they're just moving up at this point. And it's great to see the semis, to finally start moving, just because they kind of an engine behind, a lot of the rallies. So a lot of them were moving, and you would have to wait for some kind of reaction pullback to see how, if there are any points of entry there. On the software side, also any type of payment systems like PayPal, Square, ADP, those were interesting as well. This is not necessarily an outperformer by any means, relative to, let's say, PayPal, but still a very interesting pattern here. I would probably just have this on my watch list just because I don't see the relative strength here outperforming yet. So something like this, definitely just watch list, not actionable by any means. All right, Franz, what about gold mining stocks? Because they had such a big run. There are quite a few of them that were showing relative outperformance, a lot of momentum. And you've spent a lot of time just analyzing gold and talking about this. So what's your view on gold stocks?
Well, quick question for you. With one of the things that is an interesting way of sort of thinking about this market is what this COVID swoosh that we had in March might be considered sort of a black swan, unexpected event that comes out of left field, and an interesting way of thinking about the market for the market itself, and definitely for individual stocks, is to kind of ask yourself the question, and this is your idea, but what would the chart look like if we hadn't had that kind of black swan event?
Yeah.
What's going on in terms of the gold mining stocks specifically? They had quite a period where they were strong. They had good relative strength, and then they broke down pretty strongly with the rest of the market. The baby being thrown out with the bathwater is the way I like to think about it. But they've made a very, very powerful and emphatic recovery back up to the top of the prior zone of, so now the question is there enough demand to overcome whatever supply might be available? Because for the price to get down as much as it did, there had to have been some selling involved there. So to me, it's sort of, just work off supply. We still see some bars, some daily bars where there's supply that needs to be absorbed, although it's gradually diminishing. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I always like that intellectual puzzle as to how would the structure look like if a certain catalyst would not come about. So, and obviously, we are talking about this here. Would that be a part of the structure if the virus would not be here? And I think my answer would be probably no, because we have concluded a very logical accumulation into phase C and then into phase D. And phase D has had a very sustainable rally that took us above multiple levels of resistance. The price was able to hold on to that. And then only during the COVID-19 decline that, everything went down, everything was for sale. So this was a source of funding at this time. But because there is so much strength in the way how gold stocks, showed up in the prior year. They are still attractive at this point, and very savvy big investors. They're seeing this as an opportunity to buy something that they've been already buying on the way up at the much lower prices. So the recovery because of that is just so quick. It's a very interesting play. You have to be very experienced to do something like this. You have to understand the dynamic of the prior strength, prior structure, and the dynamic also of the market itself. That there might be a recovery, and that the strongest stocks that were behaving really well are going to recover much faster. So that's kind
Look
of
at
a
that
quick one.
momentum at the bottom. I mean,
Hmm.
it is
Yeah, that's
pretty dramatic.
I don't see anything like this, at least here on this chart. So yeah, momentum is just unbelievable. All right, well, let's go and see what else do we have. Again, pharmaceutical stocks are behaving really well, and I'm just gonna go quicker here. Um, Technology stocks are still outperforming, and again, we want to find the stocks that are in specific pattern, that are that have that causality, that have that relative outperformance, that have the presence, institutional presence, and have the momentum. Biotechnology, again, something of a very consistent theme, so I will be looking into that for sure. Um, SAMIs here, advanced micro devices. That's an interesting chart because um, we're kind of in the trading range right here. Uh,
Hmm.
and we had a really great analog in this area for actually a secular move up. And this was a really good move up in AMD, a lot of relative strength on it, and not a lot of selling, not a lot of shares that being sold relative, let's say, to this area right here. So this is definitely something that we want to keep on the watch list, but is it actionable right now? Probably not.
Hmm.
All right. Some reads just performing well, but would be careful about that. Um, here is the stock that definitely is outperformer, something that has been on our minds for quite some time. Look at this comparative outperformance when the market goes down. Look at the relative strength. It's actually shooting up. So this is a really interesting moment right here. Plus, it comes on the top of the one structure and even larger structure in general. So also bottoming on March 16th instead of March 23rd. So that gives you an idea of the comparative outperformance that it will lead to the upside. Had an actionable point of entry right here and still holding relatively good and above all of the points of the resistance. So this is definitely something that we would want to look at. We would want, to stock, and possibly, if we have some kind of, more meaningful reaction and a consolidation, and more importantly, a resumption of the trend as a confirmation, that would be something of interest. Okay, ATVI and Electronic Arts are also in a very interesting space for us. This is, as said, at home type of stock, and a sign of strength, and then a change of character currently into a possible backing up action. If it holds, if it creates some kind of horizontal trading range, that would be very interesting to look at. And as you could see, as we go through a lot of this, we are looking for specific patterns, right? So patterns of outperformance, but it doesn't mean that the stocks are necessarily ready to go right now. So we would have to go to something very specific in identifying points of entry that are happening right now. And we're seeing, also as you go through the list, and Franz, I wonder, if you can comment on this as well. As I go through the list, kind of like very quickly, but something catches my eye, something doesn't. I see a lot of reactions currently. So that just tells me also the state of the market in general, that we are close to the reactionary mode, and we could be seeing some kind of intermediate top forming. This is one of the stocks that just in the last week, I'm watching, and I'm liking the action here. Cooper Software, again, software stocks are just tremendously strong. You could see how the uptrend is being defined by the moving average. There is really not a lot of move to the downside on the reaction compared to the market, actually in line with the market, and then starting to outperform and now trying to break out. So stocks like this, that definitely would be interesting for, to catch our eye.
Something that probably discussed at least briefly is what everybody has their own personal trading style and time horizon, and when we look at these charts, you might be seeing something a little differently than me. I might be more of an investor approach. You might be more of a swing trading approach, or even a day trading approach. So, everybody's got to figure out their own, what's their own intention for being in the market as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this list gives you an opportunity for both to be an investor and to also look for swing trades. Definitely not necessarily an intraday, list, but as we look at the causality, that's one of the requirements for the Wyckoff investor to have. And then as we look at the rally and then the reaction, this is where the swing trader would come into the stock that exhibits some strength. This one is interesting, Citrix Systems. So together with Zoom and some other, web-based communication software stocks, had a lot of relative strength up, obviously, on the COVID-19 type of response, holding here. So doesn't mean that it might not go down as the economy is reopening here and there. These are the stocks could be for sale at some point, so you just have to be careful. But again, on our watch list, because we need to to see what's outperforming, and it's just easy to go through like this. Okay, so what else? Let me just quickly. DocuSign, the same type of story, software in the uptrend, on the reaction down, much better behaving than the market itself, going up already. So already extended. Therefore, we would be waiting, to see some kind of reaction. We would judge the character of that reaction before we consider anything. Also, very popular stock, stay at home type of stock, Domino's Pizza, France. So looking at this, how would you interpret it? How would you analyze it?
The pullback was, the COVID pullback was very impressive. Just back into the top of the previous trading range after a significant breakout, recovers very, very rapidly, and now looks like maybe another LPS up there. I don't know.
Maybe attempt to
something like that.
Yeah, go down, like being in this area right here, but a sign of strength, jump above the creek. Here's the creek, and then jump above the resistance, and then it just has to absorb all of the supply that came at this point. A little bit more favorable supply signature than, let's say, here or here, just because it jumps more, and then as supply comes, produces the reaction right into this low. So on the COVID-19 reaction. So a very interesting candidate, but again, actionable, probably not at this particular moment, just because we're so close to the resistance, but something to look at. And that's the whole purpose of the list. It's just as you go through the list like this, you start noticing, specific formations, specific themes as well. And then you're just thinking, okay, if this is a sign of strength, then how would the stock needs to behave in this area in order for me to get into the stock? And what would be a confirmation? So I keep stressing to my students that confirmation is the key, especially in this market, even though, some of the stocks exhibit that uh, relative strength characteristic and has a causality, it doesn't mean that they will move in the direction, up. So we would need to seek the development of the local structure and then the confirmation as the stocks are, behaving in the way how we are expecting them to behave. All right, eBay also is very interesting. And in general, again, a lot of the stocks have had already a big rally, and you could see that a lot of them are just going down. So you could make a judgment uh, of the market just based on the structure and how the stocks are behaving. So for instance, the stocks like right here in the biotechnology, uh, really good recovery, comes above this high right here. But is it actionable right now? No. We are in the reactionary mode, and we need to figure out what kind of reaction we're going to have here. All right. Another, gold mining stock, Franz. So how would you approach, uh, you know, not necessarily selection, because we know that gold stocks are relatively strong. But how would you approach, the stocks tactically? I mean, what would you be looking for the points of entry?
Well, looking at the price performance here, it does kind of look like it's got shortening the thrust over maybe 1, 2, yeah. So, and maybe I'd want to put some trend lines on this this uptrend that we've got going here, and yeah, for that, and something like that, and just kind of look at, what do we have going on with the momentum? I think I'd be a little cautious about adding a position here, but
Yeah, a little bit overextended over the resistance. So not necessarily the best place, to think about opening position, but a good way to keep reminding yourself where the leadership is, and then just kind of devising the plan as to, how could you act on this if certain things happen. So if there is a reaction, what kind of reaction, what kind of character, and so on and so forth. All right. Again, the software, Fortinet, also, on my short list. Really good causality, really good trading range. Sign of strength here as a minor sign of strength. Again, would we have this decline if we wouldn't have the reaction, COVID-19 reaction? And then holding on here, but we need to go to a smaller structure and to dissect this a little bit more just to see what is this mini structure. Is this more of the distributional structure or more of the reaccumulational structure? So that would be the work for us. Gilead, again, in the interesting space, biotechnology, and, obviously a lot of causality, but there is a lot of volatility right here. So you have to be
so
careful.
news driven.
Yeah,
So
very
news
news driven. And just have to be extremely careful and at the resistance point. So I don't see any necessarily points of entry right here. To me, in a stock like this, volatility needs to go down a little bit, in order for us to start taking positions or be more aggressive with the positions that we have. Another stay-at-home stock, actually, very interesting theme, food products. Um, Again, very favorable reaction to the downside, causality is built, prior leadership, and we are in the leadership, since 2019. Not all of them look exactly like this. This is probably one of the best in the food space. So again, we're a little bit overextended, and we have to think about where exactly would be the best point of entry. And I'm not sure if it's here anymore. We just have to wait for a more favorable way. All right. What else? Let's just look at maybe some other stocks that are interesting. So a stock like this, Horizon, that has a lot going on for it right now. So stop in action, here's your trading range that is defined by that stop in action. Better performance to the downside, and then kind of like this grinding action, and we're still before the resistance. So the stocks that are before the resistance that have a little bit of room to run away. These are the stocks that I would be putting on my very, very short list for, let's say, this week. And everything is going well for this particular stock so far. So that would become a very interesting candidate for me. Franz, what other stocks would you be looking at? Anything catches your eye from the list?
Well, let's take a look at Zoom real quick, because it almost looks like a bit of climactic behavior that needs some more pause to refresh.
Yes, so a really good rally here, and we are in the sign of strength type of rally. So if we're thinking about this as a trading range, and this was an IPO, then a really good rally, major sign of strength, and then we are in the backing up formation. And with this type of stock, we have to be cognizant of what is going on with the economy, how it's reopening. So obviously they had a big jump from 20 million subscribers to 200 million subscribers. So there is a lot of business that they are getting right now. But at the same time, the question is sustainability of that. Once the economy reopens, would the people still use Zoom as much? And obviously not, but there's going to be a lot of retention that they're going to have on the customer base, and therefore the trend is still up, and we just have to see how this reaction is going to unfold. Probably the most damaging part is the supply coming in on the attempt to break out, so we just have to see what kind of reaction we're going to have here. But still interesting.
Go ahead. Well, keeping it in context too, the actual rally from 60 to almost 180, a triple in 4 months, and a lot of times, as you've pointed out in the past, when institutions have 100% move, they're definitely thinking, at least short-term overvaluation and profit-taking opportunity. So a triple is even better.
Yes. And having said this, and obviously they would take some profits here, and the first decline was more about the hacking situation that they had there. So I wonder, if this second reaction here is more about the reopening of the economy. We're close to that. But overall, this sign of strength that has triple increase in profitability, and it's actually a good sign, because they are getting into the stock, and now there is some profit taken. So we just have to see if volatility comes down, if absorption happens of the supply that was presented. But yeah, very interesting stock. What else, Franz?
Well, we could look at, let's look at Viva. I know somebody that's interested, that's actually probably listening to this podcast and is interested in, and is actually in Viva.
So again, very interesting space, software plus, this is the stock that is in the medical space as well. a lot of outperformance. Again, somewhat muted response to the downside on the reaction. That's what we're looking for. They're coming in and they're buying. Right now, after the sign of strength, again, the question is, we want to see some kind of reaction, some kind of testing, and that's what we would be looking for. But we want to have this stock on our watch list just to make sure that we consistently every day look at the price action. And it usually takes me almost like 5 minutes to go through the whole list. And this last week's list is actually, quite extensive. We have over 150 stocks, I believe, in it. But still, you could go through the list very quickly if you know that the parameters that you need for the selection are there and you're just looking for the actionable spot. So a lot of the, again, technology stocks that in the payment space are interesting at this point, and even though it's touching the moving average, we would need to see is there going to be some kind of reaction, or is it going to just break through and have some kind of momentum? So there could be some play in there. I mentioned semis, also very interesting space. Semis just started to move up. So just going through the list, it's going to give you that sense, that feel of the stocks that, are performing better, and you can do this on a weekly basis. Franz?
One more to take a look at is Atlassian Team.
Yes.
Symbol.
Again, in the software. Very interesting, close to the resistance. Again, very nice base. Look at the moving average is sloping up, so we're still in the uptrend. Relative strength is up. Momentum is behaving well. So it reminds me a lot of Coupa software, also Okta, kind of like the same pattern. Still rising moving average, trading range, much more muted reaction, and then in the sign of strength close to the resistance. Yeah, so you could see some resemblance. All right. Well, I think probably that's it. We are, hopefully this was helpful on multiple levels. Just, for you guys to know that we have this product and it's completely free. There is a little bit of difficulty to get into this list for now, but we're trying to figure it out, with stock charts and on our side as well to make it more efficient and much quicker for you. And then also, I hope that, this quick analysis of some of the themes that we have on the watch list is useful. Franz, any last thoughts, comments?
Just thank you, as always, Roman, for the teaching and the analysis that you do. It's tremendous.
Well, thank you as well, Franz. And again, Franz is a moderator on our forum, so go check this out. Post your charts, and would be great also to see the charts from the watch list there on the forum. So let's do this. Thank you, everybody, and until next week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.